Welcome back to OtakuDaiKun. Dai-chan here, and you're watching the Waifu Files, a series where we discover and celebrate anime and games through their lovely ladies. This time, we enter back into the mind of Rumiko Takahashi to cover the waifu and her iconic Urusei Yatsura. This show, alongside Ranma One Half and Inuyasha, represents Takahashi's best manga, introducing characters beloved across generations. While I'm sure many of you are nostalgic for the classic anime, I'm especially fond of its 2022 remake. It didn't get a lot of mainstream coverage, and I blame Sentai Filmworks for not making it as easily accessible. Normally, I can't stand remakes, but this one is a rare case where the art style and production values happen to exceed the original. If you don't agree, then I hope this video will change your mind. If not, that's fine, as the amazing lore for these girls remains unchanged, even after all these years. I will say, though, that because I'm using the remake, I'll only be covering characters featured in it. If this video does well enough, though, I may consider going back to discuss the girls exclusive to the classic show and movies. There's a handful of them, but they all constitute side characters. The 2022 version happens to be more accurate to the original manga, albeit shorter, so there are pros and cons to each. Whichever incarnation you prefer, hopefully we can all agree that this here's one amazing lineup. Without further ado, let's dive into some waifu. The story of Urusei Yatsura centers around Ataru Moroboshi, an unremarkable sleazeball who flirts with every pretty girl he can get his hands on. One day, a race of aliens from the planet Oniboshi come to Earth hoping to conquer it as their own. To give us humans a fighting chance, the Oni agree to a game of tag, where the winner takes it all. Ataru is chosen randomly to compete, and is tasked with grabbing the horns of Lum, the Oni's representative. For older generations, Lum might just be the most iconic anime character out there, known for her adorable demeanor and loose wardrobe. As an alien, she's able to fly at will, making this game of tag seem really unfair. In exchange, Ataru is given 10 days to nab her. On the final day, he's motivated by the thought of marrying his childhood crush Shinobu, and aggressively clings to Lum's legs. During the scuffle, he accidentally yanks off Lum's top, and then uses it to lure her in and grab her horns. Carelessly, Ataru celebrates his victory by proclaiming he can finally get married, which Lum misinterprets as a proposal. Upon accepting this false proposal, Lum enters into a sacred engagement, one she aims to pursue for the rest of her life. For Ataru, you'd think this would be a dream come true, but instead, he continues his incessant flirting even as it drives Lum crazy. Whenever he cheats on her, Lum punishes him by generating a massive surge of electricity. In his defense, he never actually made a commitment to her, and merely tolerates it as she continually forces herself on him. Lum's affection may be incredibly naive, but it's also genuine. She loves her darling idiot, and is always seeking ways to win him over. To that end, she'll use her genius intellect to construct tools, like a lipstick that drives people to kiss each other. However, these schemes of hers often result in comedic hijinks that never actually resolve anything. While Lum has her own spaceship, she can also create interdimensional portals to her home planet. As a child, she grew up there as a delinquent. Along with her friends Benten, Oyuki, and Ran, she would rebel against their robotic elementary school teacher CAO2. She is an Oni after all. Fitting her hot-headedness, Lum prefers extremely spicy food, claiming she can barely taste human cuisine. The one exception is garlic, which she can't stand. To her, it's just as bad as Chomp Chomp, a plant that's more likely to eat you before you can eat it. Ultimately, Lum succeeds in appealing to Ataru through sheer persistence. Even though he treats her like a nuisance, Ataru realizes he adores her and misses her when she's not around to fawn over him. Unfortunately, he's terrible at showing that affection, and it nearly threatens the world. You see, long before she was ever born, Lum's great-grandfather offered up his family's next-born daughter in exchange for the antidote to some poisonous mushrooms he ate. Generations later, aliens from the Dark Dominion come to claim her as bride for their Prince Rupa. Normally, Lum is strong enough to defy their pursuit, but her Oni kind have a striking flaw. In the brief period after she sheds her horns, she loses her alien powers. Rupa takes advantage of this to try and force her hand in marriage. While trying to rescue her, Ataru gets into a huge argument with Lum, and the only way to rectify things is to openly state he loves her. Hoping to force these words from him, Lum reenacts the game of tag that first brought them together, threatening to erase his memories of alien life if he won't confess his feelings. Ataru remains stubborn, insisting she won't believe him if he confesses under duress. Nonetheless, he chases her in futility, making it clear how he'll never forget her. Touched by this, Lum lets Ataru win their game and vows to one day get him to say "I love you" sincerely, no matter how long it takes. Ataru may have trouble expressing himself, but I sure don't. Lum is undoubtedly a certified favorite and a legendary classic waifu worth respecting. I'll always admire her unabashed devotion, and that bikini, obviously. Rumiko Takahashi was so based for that. Lum's mom is also a very charming woman. It's clear she loves her daughter, and I appreciate how she does her best to make friends with everyone's human parents, even though they don't speak the same language. There exists an alternate reality where Lum and Ataru don't wind up together. Instead, somehow, he marries his childhood friend Shinobu Miyake, and they have a son together named Kokeru. This seems outrageous, as the Ataru we know is way too much of a playboy to commit like that. In our timeline, he and Shinobu are classmates at Tomobiki High School. Initially, Shinobu entertains the idea of dating Ataru, but this only causes her pain and frustration. It's not enough that the two of them have liked each other since kindergarten. Understandably, her animosity spikes whenever Ataru fawns over another woman, especially Lum. She offered to marry Ataru so he'd win his game of tag, only to have her hopes dashed by more infidelity. This channels a kind of superhuman strength which she uses to clobber his unfaithful ass with desks, chairs, fists, you name it. I'm glad then when she starts taking an interest in other men, such as the handsome transfer student Ryuuko Mendou. It's a shame her bad luck persists, as Mendou also takes a liking to Lum. For much of the show then, she joins in the antics platonically, occasionally beating up Ataru when he inevitably hits on her. Normally, she's a gentle and refined girl, but circumstances provoke her fury. This proves beneficial when she becomes the object of desire for Soban, an obsessed thug from Butsumet's high school. She's more than capable of knocking his ass out whenever he comes running. In contrast, Shinobu's kindness shines through when rescuing a poor kitsune from some strangely anthropomorphic dogs. The little fox follows her around, observing her from afar. Ultimately, Shinobu finds love where she least expects it. Out in the vast cosmos, the Destiny Production Management Bureau looks after the space-time continuum, specifically a series of Destiny doors that lead to alternate realities. Shinobu meets one of the Bureau's employees, Inaba, when he's starving in an alleyway. She lets him eat a carrot, but refuses his invitation to date. Even though she rejects him at first, the two meet again when Shinobu explores the world behind one of the Destiny doors. His company's factory can literally craft the ideal future, and he wants to let Shinobu design her own. For her sake, he doesn't mind breaking the rules and being punished for it. That said, Shinobu doesn't really want a different world, only getting afraid she won't be able to see Inaba again once he turns himself in. Fortunately, his punishment is mild, and he's able to take Shinobu out on cafe dates. In fact, having a girlfriend winds up being necessary for Inaba to get promoted. He's given a quest to procure a space-time flower, and Shinobu joins him as he ventures through all kinds of wacky worlds. At journey's end, he discovers the flower has wilted, but still cherishes the time he got to spend with Shinobu. His sincere love for her becomes a fertilizer that brings the flower to full bloom. Despite their interdimensional distance, it seems Shinobu and Inaba manage being girlfriend and boyfriend with ease. The next waifu on our list is Sakura, a mature yet energetic woman who winds up signing on as a nurse at Ataru's school. In the past, she was too sickly to play with her friends. To make matters worse, she became further alienated due to her ability to see ghosts and spirits. The one guy who dated her in middle school eventually dumped her for another girl. Since then, Sakura's been raised as a shrine maiden, an exorcist with a weak constitution. She discovers Ataru and immediately notices he's been infused with evil spirits, or yokai. Against his will, she attempts to purify him, only to fail her ritual due to a dreadful tooth and headache. Accidentally, Sakura winds up purging her own body of yokai, ones who have been responsible for her ailing health all this time. Rather cruelly, she makes Ataru the vessel for the yokai before properly exorcising them all. This works out in her favor, granting her a clean bill of health for the first time in her whole life. I suppose that, technically, she's still cursed, and that Ataru now takes every chance he can to hit on her. Perhaps beauty itself is a curse, as many of the boys at school are willing to injure themselves just to visit her infirmary. Like Shinobu, she responds to these unwanted advances with Herculean strength. When she's not clobbering creeps, she's eating comedically large amounts of food. Not even beauty foods meant to kill her appetite can stop her insatiable portions. Miraculously, though, this diet of hers never seems to affect her ideal figure. It does, however, bankrupt restaurants that dare to host all-you-can-eat challenges. Even though all the boys want a piece of her, Sakura's actually engaged to a sorcerer named Tsubame. He seems to be a fine man who truly cares for her, making it all the more tragic when he's cock-blocked by Ataru and all her other undesired suitors. I can't exactly vouch for her nursing skills, but her talent for exorcism has come in handy many times over. Even without it, though, she's plenty capable of putting up with this show's comedic hijinks. Our next waifu is a poor, confused soul whose mental struggle is admittedly charming. Ryuunosuke Fujinami is the daughter of a delusional man who insists on passing down his beachside cafe to a male heir. To that end, Mr. Fujinami tries to gaslight his child by raising her as a boy based off the false idea that only a man can inherit the family business. This results in them fighting almost constantly. Ryuunosuke feels like she's gotta fight like a man to defeat her father, for the ironic freedom to be more feminine. I know I should write this off as slapstick humor, but it gets pretty ridiculous. The dad's a real piece of work. As a child, Ryuunosuke grew up alone, forced to help out at the cafe even in the dead of winter. They've made it a habit of shouting at the ocean for it not being sunny outside. Needless to say, her family is dirt poor, or perhaps sand poor in this case, made all the worse by her mom being out of the picture. Ryuunosuke has no idea who her mother is, what she looked like, nor what happened to her, as any attempts to interrogate her dad only result in lies and speculation. Eventually, their feuding reaches a new zenith, destroying the cafe in the process. Desperate to survive, Ryuunosuke moves to Tomobiki High so that her dad can run the student store. To bait her into cooperation, Mr. Fujinami lures his daughter with the chance to wear a serafuku, or girl's sailor uniform. It's something she's always dreamed of wearing, putting it on such a high pedestal that she feels the need to prove herself worthy by defeating her dad in combat. Until that day, she settles for the male uniform she's used to. Unfortunately, we never do get to see how she looks dressed as a girl, not officially anyway. As a consolation prize, Ryuunosuke makes for one a hell of a tomboy. Despite her masculine tendencies, she joins our other waifu in beating the crap out of Ataru for his flirting. She also insists on proving herself a woman to her detractors, even if it means exposing her sadashi-wrapped chest. Of course, she wants to wear a bra, but can't actually afford a decent one. Yeah, it's that bad. An admiration for her feminine classmates has Ryuunosuke naively researching how to be a girl. Due to more distracting comedy, though, she sees her feminine ideal as a far-off goal on par with mastering her martial arts. It really doesn't help that her dad mocks her attempts every step of the way. It's like reverse transphobia, based on the sexist idea that a woman can't do a man's job. This psychology is further complicated by the introduction of Nagisa Shiowatari, a femboy who once appeared as a ghost, but is rematerialized by the tears of a sea urchin. Nagisa might as well be an honorable mention here, being feminine enough to convince Ryuunosuke he's a girl. That's what the femboy files are for, though, and Nagisa definitely qualifies for that. He's not shy about admitting he's a boy, and becomes aggressively affectionate for Ryuunosuke. As the child of another cafe owner, Nagisa is welcomed to live with the Fujinamis, much to Ryuunosuke's dismay. Just like normal, she tries to settle their differences through combat, only to be defeated outright. Luckily, Sakura comes in clutch with some talismans that ward off Nagisa and his perversion, since he's technically still a ghost. Let it be known, femboys can be douchebags too. I'd say Ryuunosuke qualifies as another of my certified favorites. It's frustrating how her dad's groomed and gaslit her into boyhood, but she's turned out admirable in some ways. She's adorably feminine when embarrassed, and very noble in her values. She's more of a man than her pathetic father, and yet that doesn't make her any less of a woman. I just wish she were shown overcoming her abusive dad once and for all. Ran, sometimes localized as Lan, is another alien girl who's been friends with Lum since childhood. Unfortunately, that friendship isn't as delightful as it might first sound. When they were kids, Lum would selfishly blame her mistakes on Ran, such as wetting the bed or accidentally breaking things in the house. Taking Lum's word at face value, Ran's mom would reprimand her harshly for things that weren't even her fault. This mom being gorgeous can't possibly negate how overly strict she is. Time and again, Ran's mom viciously scolded her, forcing her to develop a resentful, defensive attitude. To make matters worse, Ran and Lum used to both crush on the same boy, a shape-shifting Oni named Rei. Between the two girls, Rei chose Lum, sparking even more tension. Even though Lum has long since broken up with Rei, Ran still wants to exact revenge on her by moving to Earth and transferring to the exact same school. Once Ran learns of Lum's engagement to Ataru, she plots to steal Ataru away. You see, Ran has this special ability that lets her suck people's youthful energy out through kissing. She plans on kissing Ataru this way, only to discover how annoyingly flirtatious he is. She doesn't even have to try to tempt him, and before long, she's fending him off like the other waifu. Due to her abusive mom, poor Ran has two separate personalities. There's her angry, violent self, upon which she's constructed a more delicate, friendly persona that can shift at the drop of a hat. While her furious side doesn't seem to deter the boys at school, the only man she actually cares about is her beloved Rei. It's too bad Rei's still obsessed with Lum. Despite Lum no longer being interested in Rei, Ran's still insecure about it, suspecting Lum might be trying to sabotage her. Nah, Rei just isn't into her. Aside from Lum, he's only got one thing on his mind: food. Rei's such a glutton that he'll eat almost anything. Fortunately, Ran happens to be a talented chef and tries to use Rei's stomach as the key to his heart. It's quite delusional, since Rei will technically follow anyone willing to give him food. Ran mistakes his hunger for affection, especially when he kisses her face just to lick off some extra crumbs. Even so, Ran is so desperate to win his favor that she's willing to seek these superficial moments, concocting new recipes she believes will finally win him over. It's really sad, actually. She deserves someone who's as into her as Ataru, just not Ataru himself. At the very least, it seems Ran is able to reconcile with Lum, accepting that neither of them is trying to sabotage the other's love life. If anything, there were times Lum tried to protect Ran as a child, but was simply too afraid of getting spanked or scolded. That said, I wouldn't hold my breath waiting for Ran to finally hook up with Rei. Another of Lum's childhood friends is the biker babe Benten, an alien from the rival Gods of Luck clan. She too is a tomboy, a rough delinquent who persuaded her friends into rebelling as kids. While everyone in that group needs to take responsibility for their own involvement, it's fair to say Benten was one of the masterminds. To this day, she remains as rebellious as ever, soaring the stars with her red air bike and fighting off opposition with a heavy chain worn around her shoulder. It's a mystery whether Benten has ever had a boyfriend, or if she even cares about romance at all. She does get flustered by the idea of Ryuunosuke liking her, though. Most of the time, she's pragmatic, doing whatever it takes to win. More specifically, her clan faces off against Lum's Oni clan through Setsubun, a recurring war game where teams compete to gather beans. If it means throwing Lum off her game, Benten is willing to seduce Ataru, even though she's not really into him. I'm glad it's just a ruse, as this show doesn't need another love triangle. In this case, Benten and Lum are respectful rivals who hold each other accountable when they step out of line. Lum nearly lets Earth be overrun by giant mushrooms, all over a lover's quarrel. Benten makes the most direct effort, calling her out for being selfish. Aside from her air bike, Benten seems quite sentimental about her chain. This isn't because it's a memento from a past boyfriend or family member. Rather, the chain just so happens to double as the key to her house. Without it, she can't go home. Fair enough. Knowing me and my tastes, you should have guessed I'd make her a certified favorite. It's unfortunate that she doesn't get enough screen time. When she does appear, it's often while paired with our next waifu. The last of Lum's group of friends is Oyuki, a snow queen who hails from Neptune. She very clearly embodies the appeal of Yuki Onna, a popular yokai from Japanese folklore. While she can in fact conjure chilled winds and icicle storms, she's usually very calm and elegant. As children, she was the only one in their friend group to try and avoid mayhem, and luckily she was never punished for what the other girls did. Not even Oyuki's closest friends can tell whether she cares about romance. This is because she's far more devoted to handling her finances. She's a miser, and is always looking for the chance to shill products made in Neptune. She even goes all the way to Earth, hoping to recruit Ataru's friends for cheap labor shoveling snow. Apparently, she's the strongest character in Urusei Yatsura, able to flash freeze those who anger her. Oyuki's colds are literal, dropping the temperature of everything around her when she gets sick. Despite this tremendous power, she isn't fond of conflict, and only uses her ice to help out friends. Instead, Oyuki relies on her Yeti guardian, Bibo, who will travel to stars to protect or avenge her. This miraculously has Ataru reconsider hitting on her. Well, sometimes. Like Benten, I wish she had more moments to herself, instead of just riding along on the air bike. The rebellious antics of Lum and her friends inspire the next generation of delinquents. Sugar, Pepper, and Ginger form the Three Girls Gang, hoping to prove themselves the baddest girl gang in school against Lum, Benten, and Oyuki. In that endeavor, they deceive Benten, putting her to sleep with mushroom spores before stealing her precious chain. Holding the chain hostage, the girls challenge their predecessors out of a petty need to assert dominance. This boils down to a silly game of keep away, which the girls are surprisingly good at. Pepper, in particular, has a technique called Slippery Do, which lets her shed a layer of skin whenever caught. Kinda gross, actually. Equally odd is their mech, a giant chef-shaped robot named Salt. The 2022 remake only features one of their devious plans coming to fruition, but they make several other attempts in the manga. All in all, it seems like harmless fun. When Ryuuko Mendou transfers to Tomobiki High, his little sister Ryuko transfers to the Seiran High School for girls. In essence, Ryoko's a devilish prankster who takes delight in toying with her loved ones. When we first meet her, she arrives from a 2-day journey by ox cart to deliver her brother's lunch, which is now spoiled. By feigning tears, she can pressure him into eating the nasty bento. Ataru quickly becomes one of her favorite pawns, as playing into his perverted antics always results in hilarity. While Shutaro employs a team of henchmen called the Black Glasses Corps, Ryuko has her own Kuroko ninja servants who cater to her every whim, such as dressing as a horse for her to ride on. She'll act like these are all just flights of fancy, but she's very clearly a sadist. One of her worst pranks involves making a voodoo doll of her brother and letting Ataru bring it to school without context. Oddly, she has a pet Sakura tree, which she feeds sake, and legs torn from her brother's pet octopi. Without hesitation, Ryuko will lob grenades at people, then act concerned when their charred remains fly back to her. Eventually, Ryuko finds a new toy in Tobimaru Mizunokouji, her brother's lifelong rival. She'll often play into the role of his lover in order to motivate him toward foolish follies. I don't know, guys. Think you can fix her? You're not supposed to stick your dick in crazy, but what if that's your type? Tobimaru's also got a sister, and she's incredibly bizarre. Asuka Mizunokouji takes after her mother in that she's got incredible strength and agility. Slamming through walls, lifting trees, and bending steel are all easy matters for her. What isn't easy for her, though, is men. In attempting to keep her pure, Asuka's mom raised her in isolation, to the point where Tobimaru didn't even know he had a sister. Instead, Asuka's caretakers are a troupe of cute female agents who trained her to take advantage of her strength. Eventually, though, Mrs. Mizunokouji insists on having her daughter marry Ryuuko Mendou, meaning that Asuka will finally have to break her isolation. Despite her caretakers educating her on men, she's so afraid of actually meeting one that she disguises herself within a clunky suit of armor. This isn't enough to stop Ataru from discovering how cute she is and becoming the very first guy she encounters. It goes about as well as you'd expect, reinforcing Asuka's existing phobia. Strangely, there's one exception. She's not afraid of her own brother, who protects her from other guys. Somehow, she's able to ignore her brother's gender, treating brothers as a whole other category. Since Shutaro happens to be a big brother, Asuka's parents use this angle to try and cure her phobia. Every time, though, Ataru fucks it up. Regardless, Asuka's mom insists on forcing her to confront her fears. All it really results in, though, is her doubling down on incestuous tendencies. Man, this show's got a lot of characters who have been absolutely broken by their shitty parents. An exception to that rule happens to be Kurama, princess of the Karasu Tengu race of aliens. Following tradition, she places herself in suspended animation, hoping to be woken up by a kiss from her Prince Charming. This becomes a burden on her crow goblin henchmen, who simply want her to find a husband as quickly as possible. Based on his handsome charm, the crows try to get Shutaro to give her the wake-up kiss, but when he hesitates, Ataru intervenes and steals the kiss for himself. At first, Kurama believes the smooch came from Shutaro, and the crows play along since she immediately despises Ataru. They've got a marriage to arrange, and the truth will only hurt her. Of course, Ataru wants to claim his prize, and insists he's the one she's destined to mate with. Since the very idea appalls her, Kurama looks into the meaning behind her race's tradition and finds out it's just her ancestor's selfish attempt to preserve his own experience getting married. Refusing to endorse the tradition any longer, she plans to marry Shutaro instead, only to be turned off by his claustrophobia. The whole affair infuriates her, and she sets out to find her ideal man somewhere else. Throughout the series, Kurama tries to court Rei and even Ryuunosuke, both of which end in failure. No matter how desperate she gets, though, she refuses to compromise, which is fair. A hottie like her deserves a handsome man, but I can't help but find it odd how she keeps trying to recruit from the same pool of Japanese humans. There's bound to be tons of other options in the universe, right? Ataru's mom, Mrs. Moroboshi, happens to bear the unfortunate burden of raising the universe's most lecherous teenager. He's rumored to be misfortune incarnate, having been born on Friday the 13th in April on the day of a major earthquake. That said, she seems to be a good woman who yearns to save face in her community. She's embarrassed by her son's antics, and horrified that her little boy might be the one responsible for failing to save the Earth. She's willing to tolerate all the alien activity in her home, so long as it doesn't mean she has to feed unexpected company, or be held responsible when their house is demolished, which does happen a lot. While kind in general, she can be strict on Ataru and judgmental of her husband. Their future seems uncertain when Rei shows up, and Mrs. Moroboshi falls head over heels for him. She dotes on the younger boy, leaving her husband feeling ashamed. Nothing wrong with appreciating beauty, but there's a time and place for it, yeah? I'll try not to take this too seriously. It's meant to be humorous, after all. On a more serious note, we have Nozomi, a girl who died in the hospital without fulfilling her dreams. Apparently, Nozomi would admire Ataru from her window, hoping to go on a date with him. Until she gets her wish, she lingers on as a ghost. To help her move on, Sakura recruits Ataru to gift Nozomi the dream date she always wanted. This means wearing all the hand-knit clothes she made while stuck in bed. Even though it's now the heat of summer, Ataru endures for a good cause. They spend the entire day together, and yet her soul still clings to Earth. Based on what's written in her diary, Nozomi wants to walk arm in arm with Ataru through the snow. It may not be actual snow, but the falling sparks from fireworks serve as a suitable replacement. In a beautiful, bittersweet moment, she passes on with a smile. I wonder if she ever knew or cared about Ataru's lechery. In a strange sort of way, he might have actually helped him more sincerely date a girl he just met. Our final waifu happens to be Karla, or Karula, another alien from the Dark Dominion. She and Rupa were childhood friends, but things changed when they learned of Rupa's engagement to Lum. Hoping to convince Rupa to marry her, Karula showered the boy with gifts and affection. When this failed, she resorted to violent threats, even holding Rupa at gunpoint. Her childish temper endured for 10 years, when it finally becomes time for Rupa's arranged marriage. In desperation, she recruits Ataru, hoping to sabotage the wedding venue with guns and explosives. He thinks he's just there to act as Karula's new fiancé with a fake marriage license, but he winds up being held hostage instead. Enraged when things don't go her way, she fires indiscriminately, forcing everyone to take refuge on the roof. There, Karula nearly falls to her death, but Rupa saves her at the last second. Turns out, had she not resorted to violence, Rupa would have been more inclined to accept her. Now, though, he's wrapped up in the effort to marry Lum. Jealous and hurt, Ataru tries to spite Lum by pairing with Karla. Neither of these couples are right for each other, but they stubbornly stick to their affirmations and go their own ways. When Ataru and his friends gather for dinner, his mom complains about not having enough food. Karula offers up a plate of her planet's mushrooms, failing to mention how quickly and largely they can spread. Thus, a humble meal turns into a nightmare, as the mushrooms infest Earth. Rupa's army of flying pigs could eat all the overgrown shrooms, but Karla's hesitant to ask for his help after everything they've been through. Luckily, Lum can tell Rupa really does love Karula, and they arrange to use this as a chance to test Ataru's affections. While he and Lum reenact their game of tag, Rupa and Karula reconcile. They realize it can be hard to admit how they actually feel, but it's worth it when they finally do. It's never too late, and in this case, Karula and Rupa pledge their love to each other, saving Earth regardless of what happens between Ataru and Lum. I personally find Karula to be very pretty, but it's clear how her passion isn't processed in a healthy manner. Hopefully, she'll stop using violence to solve her romantic issues going forward. Like I said before, there are other waifu exclusive to the classic Urusei Yatsura anime and manga. In fact, I count about 17 of them, but I suspect they're all very unimportant side characters. If you think I'm wrong, let me know in the comments. Assuming this video does well, I can binge all the classic stuff and do a follow-up. As usual, be sure to check out my full Waifu Files playlist for more exciting episodes. Be sure to comment which anime or games you'd like to see in a future installment. And until next time, celebrate your fandom!
I want to give a special shout out to all my $10 and up supporters: Video Gamer 75, Dante Pendragon, Stephen Elak, Otaku Mom, Mystic Samurai 1983, Free Brick, Alexis Yukio Gomez Yamato, Lunarworks, Link Pendrago, Observer Bellis, James Hewitt, Uncanny EXP, Crow Calum, Saul Soto, Tristan Riggin, Major, Winter's Edge, Sneer Cachette, Sunbro Torian, Caitlin P, Soguy CH, Sith Lord 906, Vladimirovna, The Taz 96, Kengo X 77, Alistair Bernadotte, and Reason 99. Thank you all so much.